Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Awthentik and The Beard, the best television show not on TV. We got 4 games to go over today. Our New York Giants, the only team in the NFC East to take a loss this past week in Week 15. The Cowboys handled business against the Carolina Panthers. Washington snuck out of New Orleans with a 1-point victory. The Eagles win their 10th straight, and the New York Giants lose their 9th straight. Things are definitely not looking good in New York. We are going to talk about that on our first recap of the game here. But let's bring in the best co-host in the country so we can get right to it. The left side to the strong side duo. Y'all know what it is, man. My brother from another mother. I see him backstage swagging. He's feeling himself. Washington Commanders get a little cheap victory, and the Beard is showing up with the biceps. I mean, that's just what it is here, man. What's going on, man?
I mean, you know, when you get flexed into Sunday night, Week 17, you got to flex on them. You know what I'm saying?
You damn near got flexed on by them New Orleans Saints there one time in that game that came down to the wire. But I definitely feel you, man. We're about to be entering Week 16 here. Y'all game did get flexed. We were talking about who y'all got swapped out for. I'm sure it wasn't my New York Giants, who have definitely been struggling on the year here. But nonetheless, the Washington Commanders are going to be playing the Atlanta Falcons in 2 weeks. In the Sunday night football position here. But the New York Giants got to take on those Atlanta Falcons coming up next week here. I was hoping to get a little bit of Michael Penix. You know, Raheem Morris, you were talking about it backstage, has not really committed to who's the quarterback. Boy, would I love to see some Michael Penix torching my New York Giants on Sunday.
Listen,
that would be amazing.
I would be so torn, right? Because obviously we're both big Penix guys. Penix was my number 2 quarterback behind, Daniels. So, I would love to see that. But at the same time,
really, was Caleb Williams your quarterback 3?
Caleb was my 3. I had Penix over Caleb.
Not crazy.
Listen, I need y'all to come out with a dub, though. Make my life a little bit easier this week. Because, I know y'all want to draft. Y'all need a draft pick, and y'all are tied with the Raiders right now. And there's probably I think there's 6 teams. Remember, if the Beard says "I think," you have to double check.
Yeah,
but I'm
you might want to hit the Google one time, right?
I'm pretty sure there's 6 teams that are 3-win teams. So it's gonna come down to the last week there probably.
Yeah. This week is going to be really important. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, so somebody going to lose in that game, and I think this is a really important week here. And the Giants just, when you play the Colts, that to me, that's the one. That's the one that gives us a little bit of opportunity to, maybe get a dub here, possibly a little Tim Boyle miracle. Atlanta's kind of struggling here a little bit, but I do think they're a team that can take care of business against the New York Giants.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You would think that they would have taken care of business against the Raiders, but it wasn't. It was kind of just a little, there's a lot of ice skating going on in these games.
I mean, a win is a win is a win, so we can't say they didn't take care of business.
Yeah.
They took care of business. It got a little dicey, right?
It was just a little, like you said, we're skating on thin ice here in the NFL.
Definitely skate. It's funny. I was going to make a reference to the snow as well, some kind of ice vibes there, because, they had a job that they needed to handle, right? This is kind of like some snow plowing type vibes on a Sunday, kids thinking that school might be out on a Monday. The Atlanta Falcons came through somehow with the trucks, dropped the salt, and forced the kids to go to school on a Monday. All right.
Yeah, well, we'll see who's going to be leading the class here shortly in a couple of days. But it was a fun weekend of football. I mean,
it was.
Listen, the Lions-Bills game was crazy.
Your boy said that the Bills are going to win that game. Not only that game, I only missed one game on the entire weekend.
Listen, if you guys aren't tuned in, parlay Sunday mornings at 11:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There was some nuggets given out on that one. The Mark Andrews.
There's one that you had that I was thinking about.
It was one of my sleepers hit. I
think it was a running back.
Well, McMillan definitely hit hit a touchdown for Tampa Bay.
In the Bucs game?
Yeah, in the Bucs game. He had a pretty good game. Najee Harris was my sit.
That's the one. It was Najee Harris, and he struggled. I mean, a big reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers lost that game was that possession there entering the fourth quarter with Najee Harris and the turnover. That was huge.
Yeah, and still this is not proven point by the Beard, and I feel like my head is just like a floating head right now with this all black I'm wearing.
Oh yeah, we blacked out today.
Yeah, we definitely blacked out today.
We didn't plan this either.
There are rumors that Notre Dame is going to be debuting black uniforms this Friday night for that game, so I'm kind of curious to see how.
If I had to put it together right now, just kind of envisioning it, it would be black tops, black bottoms with the black pants, the gold helmet. Give me a little bit of gold accent with a little bit of white in the numbers. We good to go.
Got to sprinkle some green in there somewhere.
Maybe.
But this, my thing I was going to say is this might be the worst season for kickers of all time in NFL.
Yeah, it's been bad. It's definitely been bad. And we've kind of been spoiled. Kicking has gotten so good over the past decade, and now it's kind of came back down to earth this year. Kickers were definitely a big part of this past weekend. Even in your game with Greg Joseph, former guy who kicked for the New York Giants, definitely struggled and gave the Saints an opportunity here. But you ready to get off into this recap here? I've been excited. I've been prepping for this show since about 3 p.m. and I've been pretty excited about this one, even though we went for 4.5 hours on the Giant Overreaction on Monday. Shout out to all of y'all that pulled up. That was just a vibe. I thought the show was going to be like an hour and a half. First Giant Overreaction was like maybe an hour into the show. I don't know how we did 4.5 hours, but it was definitely a vibe. Shout out to everybody that was there. But I'm looking forward to talking about the New York Giants again. With more time comes more data, and it's been an interesting last couple of days in the New York market here. So let's get right to it, man, and talk about Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, who traveled up 95 to come to MetLife to take on the struggling, very mightily struggling New York Giants.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
Beard, this is almost a vibe where I want to go full screen in a way, but I'm not going to do that because we were full screen for 4.5 hours on the Giant Overreaction, so I can't do the Beard like that. But the Ravens do end up improving to 9-5. Notice I stressed the improving ever since the Washington Commanders said that they improved after losing a game. The Giants fall to 2-12. The Ravens were favored by 16.5 in this game. Over-under was 43. And the Ravens cover and win. They win this one 35-14. The Giants are 1-9 in the conference right now. They're 0-8 at home, 0-5 in the division, 2-12 on the year, have lost 9 straight games, which is a franchise record, have the fewest points scored in the NFL at 208. They're the 14th team in NFL history to go 0-8 at home in a singular season. I know that I took y'all around back to the back alley in Northeast, and I showed y'all the Daniel Jones corpse just laying there, right? It was there. Because the streets, they needed one. But the streets need another body. And Paulie and the Beard have both been talking about that we need 2 bodies this year. So, Mr. John Mara, we need another body here. There's planes flying over with messages over MetLife Stadium saying sell the team. I'm hearing that content creators, shout out to Bobby and Talking Giants, are getting phone calls from the PR department from the New York Giants saying, hey, buddy, we don't like that video you just put out talking about firing Joe Schoen. Fans are showing up in the stadium with bags over their faces. This is the worst, not just since we've been on air. This is the worst New York Giants season of my entire life right now. Some people can date back to the 70s. I'm an OG, but I'm not a triple OG. I don't go back that far. But the way that the New York Giants have been losing these past 9 weeks is pretty much unacceptable. And the streets do need another body at this point. A lot of people have been saying that the rumors that are going around the New York Giants community right now are that Brian Daboll is a dead man walking. And I've expressed my thoughts about Joe Schoen on the Giant Overreaction, not just this past week, but maybe for the past 15 weeks about Joe Schoen not being the guy. The Giants come out in this game, and we knew that the Baltimore Ravens were going to come into this game and definitely take it to the New York Giants. I can't remember if you picked the Giants to cover or not. A lot of people were a little bit in limbo about that, thinking that 16.5 was just a little bit too much. I had a feeling that the Ravens were going to absolutely cover that 16.5. The Giants start the day, punt, turnover on downs, and you knew from that point on that this game was pretty much over. After stalling out for the first 2 possessions, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens scored touchdowns on 5 straight consecutive drives. The Giants had just 3 rushing first downs all day. Me and the Beard stressed to y'all about how important it was that we get Tyrone Tracy involved in this game if the New York Giants were going to have a chance at competing with the Baltimore Ravens. 2 for 12 on 3rd down. One of the things that stood out to me on our preview show was when I talked about controlled aggression from Brian Daboll, and literally on the first drive, this guy goes out there. We get into the green zone. He goes for it on 4th and 1 with a quarterback sneak from Tommy DeVito, and it does not work out. The Giants ended up being 3 for 5 on 4th down on the day, and I think that those numbers are a bit lucky. The Giants were completely outmatched in this game, and I thought it was a game where when you got into the green zone and you got into the red zone, it might have serviced us a little bit better to just take the points that were there. The Ravens led at the half 21-7. Tommy DeVito was 10 for 13 for 68 yards. And when you consider the way that the New York Giants quarterbacks have played this season, that's not that bad. He was sacked 2 times in the first half. Ruled out with the concussion, surprisingly. A lot of us didn't even notice what hit really caused it when we were watching the game live. Tim Boyle ends up coming in and having a pretty decent day. 12 of 24 for 123 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked just 1 time. And this is a guy who's a journeyman. I broke down his whole career pretty much on a Giant Overreaction. Tim Boyle is not some young guy that's coming out of left field that you haven't heard of. He's a guy that has been in the league for 7 years. He's 30 years old. So any options of thinking that Tim Boyle could possibly be any answer to the quarterback position with the New York Giants, you can ball it up and throw it out the window. But I do give him his props. He played pretty well for a guy. He's been on the team for just over 3 weeks. And he goes out there and dare I say he pushed the ball down the field better than any quarterback that we've seen for suit up for the New York Giants this entire year. So I give him his props. I give him his flowers. Some people kind of misconstrued that on the Giant Overreaction, thinking that I was looking. I mean, come on. If you watch me, you know that I'm not looking at Tim Boyle as an answer at the quarterback position. The Giants had 10 total first downs in the first half. 4 of those came from penalty. The Ravens were averaging 9.5 yards per pass, while the Giants were averaging 3.3 yards per play. Third down was terrible for the New York Giants on both sides of the ball. You're allowing the Baltimore Ravens to pretty much convert on every third down. And on the flip side, offensively, the Giants just couldn't convert on third down to save their lives. 7 of the Giants' 18 first downs in this game came from penalty. 55 total rushing yards from the Giants. I've been telling y'all, I think, for the past couple of weeks and maybe for the whole entire season since the Seattle game at least, to pump the brakes on Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy is not necessarily a playmaker that defensive coordinators are scheming up to try to stop. He's a guy that can be effective in the backfield, but we have seen plenty of running backs do this over the years in the NFL, and we don't deem these guys as true playmakers. Tyrone Tracy, to me, looks a bit like Devin Singletary has looked throughout his entire career. He's not the type of dynamic running back that's going to open up and game break a game, but he can get the necessary yards and be an effective piece for the New York Giants offense. But I'm not looking at Tyrone Tracy as check mark from the 2024 draft, right? He's a late-round running back. He's been effective. I give him his props. But at the end of the day, I think now that teams know what they have to do to stop him, it's been a little bit of a tough sledding for Tyrone Tracy lately. Lamar Jackson, just incredible. Not just in this game, but on the year. Me and the Beard was talking about Lamar Jackson before backstage before we kicked off the stream and whatnot about who would be the MVP right now. And I said, I need these last couple of games because Lamar Jackson is pushing for a lot of history here, but he was the difference, and he did a lot of his damage in the first half. Started off the game pretty much perfect. 13 of 14 for 162 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He finished the day 21 of 25 for 290, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a QBR of 93.3. I went and looked at Lamar Jackson's rating over his career. Lamar Jackson has a career passer rating over 100. Which is extremely impressive. In this game, he had a passer rating of 154.6, which is damn near perfect. He had 6 rushes for 65 yards. He was averaging 10.8 yards per carry. He was pressured 12 times, which is pretty decent, I would say, from the New York Giants, considering the amount of injuries that we came into this game with. 5 of those pressures came from Brian Burns, so big shout out to Brian Burns. I've been very critical of him this year. But considering that he had almost half the pressures that the New York Giants had on the day is impressive. Kayvon Thibodeau, just 2 pressures and 1 tackle on the day. Lamar Jackson, all that said, first quarterback in NFL history to hit minimums of 80%, 80% completion rate, 250 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns with 0 interceptions, and at least 50 rushing yards. He had more passing touchdowns than he had incompletions. It's the 5th career game with 5 or more passing touchdowns while having fewer than 5 incompletions. It's his 6th game with 5 passing touchdowns. He completed the ball to 8 different receivers. In his last 7 games, he's got 25 total touchdowns, 1 interception, 24 passing touchdowns. These numbers on the year are out of this character of Lamar Jackson because we don't give Lamar Jackson the type of scrutiny that a lot of people around the NFL are still giving him, where he's a running back. Most of what he does is on the ground. To go look at his numbers today and see the total of these numbers is absolutely ridiculous. 34 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the year. 3,000 It's absolutely ridiculous. Lamar Jackson is continuing to raise the bar year in and year out. And I keep the receipts. I'm not going to call this person out, but when Lamar, before he won the MVP last year, I was in a debate with somebody on Twitter, and they're like telling me reasons why we need to sign Daniel Jones and why he looks like he could be the better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. And one of the points was Lamar Jackson has regressed every season since his first MVP. And then he won one last year. He's on his way to winning another this year. I mean, there is some good competition out there, but Lamar Jackson has just been completely incredible. He's second in QBR in the NFL right now. He's pushing for the best passer rating ever in a single season. Right now, he's at 120.7. He's got 743 rushing yards on the season. I've been talking about, Lamar might be, I've been saying this for about 5 weeks, Lamar could be the first guy to throw for 4,000 and rush for 1,000. There's 3 games left. He needs 257 rushing yards. I think that's pretty doable. He needs 420 passing yards. I think that's even more doable than the rushing yards is, right? So we're talking 85.6 rushing yards per game is what he's going to need, and 140 passing yards per game. Mark Andrews hit the ground running, got the touchdown that I called on the parlay right off the bat. He only had 2 receptions for 24 yards and 1 touchdown. And Lamar Jackson did this in a game where it's not that Derrick Henry was ineffective. It's just they didn't need Derrick Henry. He had 14 carries on the day. I was very conscious of the drive that they got him going on, too, where he had 4 carries for about 40 yards. 14 on the day, 14 carries for 67 yards. He's still averaging 4.8 yards per carry in a game where he didn't even rush for 70 yards. The Ravens as a team still rushed for 170 on the day. Rashad Bateman is slowly but surely becoming that guy that they drafted in the first round that they thought was going to be that guy.
He's had a couple of games like that this year where Zay Flowers didn't necessarily pop, but Bateman stepped up and then had himself a big game. A couple of those this year.
He did. He's got a game where he went over 100 yards this year already, but this was his first career game with 2 touchdowns, and he was a big difference maker in this game too. The big plays reminded me of what we've been seeing from Marquez Valdez-Scantling over the past 3 to 4 weeks here. Bateman had 3 receptions for 80 yards. Justice Hill in the passing game. Love what I'm seeing from him. He was on my bench on my fantasy team. It didn't matter. I've been eliminated from the playoffs. 5 receptions for 61 yards and 1 touchdown. And then 9 for 11 on 3rd down. Yeah. You're just not going to win a game unless you have a equally miraculous performance from your offensive unit if you're allowing a team to go 9 for 11 on 3rd down. The one thing that the Ravens did wrong in this game was the penalties. 12 penalties for 112 yards, season high. They lead the league in penalty yardage. They have 4 games with over 100 yards allowed on penalties. So that's the one blemish. But this was a game I didn't expect to win, and this game made me think about something. I want to go back through the year, and I want to put together a compilation of every time we picked the game for the Giants and just see how spot on we are, because I don't remember you picking the New York Giants a lot this year. I damn sure didn't pick the New York Giants a lot this year. I'm trying to think of the last game. Oh, the last game I picked them to win was against the Saints, and they had their opportunity and ended up losing 14-11. But at the end of the day, this product that the New York Giants have put on the field has yielded 0 results. And as the weeks go by, I feel like somebody needs to get fired before the season ends. We got just 3 games left. We'll see what happens. To me, if it's going to be somebody, a singular person, it needs to be Joe Shane. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And what are the odds that a team goes out there and fires the GM, but yet keeps the head coach? But I think that we need to do a Washington type of situation here. Mm-hmm. And I've been convinced now at this point by the football product that the New York Giants have put on the field and the conversations that I have had in the New York Giants community. It's time, man. Either both of these guys got to go, one of them got to go, but at the end of the day, I think it will be more beneficial if the New York Giants cleaned house. But what were your thoughts about this game and just the Giants moving forward?
I'm right there with you. I've been saying it probably longer than most people, because I saw the writing on the wall. For me, there is no other option than to fire everybody. It's becoming so much it's deja vu for me almost.
I think that's why you kind of saw it before everybody, because you saw the success that y'all had by doing that exact thing, by just firing everybody and getting rid of all the dead weight.
And not only just the success that we had, but the dramatic of the downfall getting worse and worse and worse, because that's the kind of the trajectory that that the New York Giants are on right now. And then like the Joe Shane press conference with the "we're close," that sort of similarity to Bruce Allen, and then just last year for the Commanders, that was the worst. Some people think it was the worst season in Washington franchise history last year.
It was definitely close. It was definitely close.
And I think that most Giants fans can probably look at this year and say the same thing. It might not necessarily be.
It is. It is.
But
it is. I mean, you're talking, we're on a record-breaking losing streak here. And we might lose the most game. We might tie the amount of games, for minimal wins that the Giants have had in the history of the franchise. The Giants have never, had a season where they lost every game or won just one game, I don't think. 2, I think, is the fewest games they've won in a season. But just imagine if the Giants don't win another game. Just imagine that.
There's no, I just feel like, and with the pushback from the fan base, the fan base for New York Giants has always been vocal, right? But the flying over the stadium, that's a first, right?
Never seen nothing like that. Yeah.
The brown bags, I'm just from the outside looking in, this is it. You cannot. The problem is that you can't let necessarily the history define the future. And when I say that, I mean just because you can't just worry about firing your GM and your head coach again, right? You can't, that shouldn't be a reason why you don't fire your head coach and your GM. And so you kind of have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, if you continue down this path, let's say you get rid of Brian Daboll, realistically, what's the percentage of the organization going in the right direction based upon your head coach? I would say less than 50%, right? The holes that have been dug by this current regime in New York is just becoming more and more evident. It's so much more than just Daniel Jones, right? But the Daniel Jones was just so blatantly in our faces, and most people who weren't being blinded by their fandom and blinded by their wanting it to work, most people saw the downfall happening then. Because it's not necessarily a lot of people will be like, oh, well, the contract wasn't that bad number-wise, right? Okay, maybe it's not. But the domino effect of that contract and the way that it affected the roster and the decisions that the front office made from that day forward is what's really having the biggest cause and effect now.
Really just paid the wrong guy. Okay, if that was Derek Carr, right, that you gave that contract to, he came to New York, he struggled a little bit, whatever. We'd be like, cool, Derek Carr had 5 seasons to 4,000 yards or something like that, right? Yeah. You'd be okay with it. To me, it's the player. It's that you are investing that much of a percentage of your salary cap in one guy who does not move the needle. And you look at a guy like we went against here on Sunday with Lamar Jackson. I'm not sure how much of the salary cap percentage he takes up with a contract that's over $200 million, right? But no one in Baltimore is going, man, Lamar's taking up too much of the cap, man. Nobody, because he's going out there and he's performing, whereas Daniel Jones was going out there and putting up very lackluster performances. And some people have been using the same excuse of, well, look, you see what it looks like with these other quarterbacks out there, right? Daniel Jones wasn't the problem, and we continue to say this. He's not the solution, which is more important than him being the problem at the most important position in all of sports. You have to be able to solidify that guy at that position and have at least some type of floor. What you said about digging the hole from this regime, I totally agree with you. And the biggest problem about that is they already were in the hole. They were trying to put dirt back in the hole, right? To try to build up a foundation to be able to be standing on level ground. And instead, all these moves that they are doing compounded, they're actually digging the Giants a deeper hole. We're a worse team today than we were when these guys got here at the end of 2021 and in 2022.
And the thing is that you can look at the Brian Burns thing too. It's just, it's for lack of a detailed analogy here, the checkers and chess sort of situation, right? It just feels like they are going the ass backwards way of trying to rebuild the organization. And with the Brian Burns deal, it's another big contract with a lot of money and lost draft picks. It doesn't seem like there's a real plan in place. That's
And
what
a
it
lot
really
of
feels
people
like.
have complained about that. A lot of my homies, when we talk ball on Twitter, they're like, what is the plan?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
what are
the
they
problem.
trying to accomplish here?
And if you continue to hold on to what has already been done, right? Look at what Washington has just dealt with this year, and we are extremely lucky and very fortunate because of multiple different things. Adam Peters is just he was the right guy. There's no question about it.
Yep.
Him and Dan Quinn and Kingsbury and that whole entire coaching staff and front office work really well together. Okay, so we got very lucky. Like, that could possibly be an anomaly, right? But if you look at what happened to Washington, we literally we have 0 of our first round picks for the last 4 seasons on the roster. Do you know how many franchises do that? That is almost like you do not just bounce back from like your first round draft picks and even your second round draft picks in most cases are guys that you're relying on to play for your team, at least through their rookie contract, and be productive, because the way that the salary cap and the structure of these contracts for quarterbacks are nowadays, you need these guys to perform on rookie deals because it's so hard to do financially after the rookie deals. So if you continue to go down this path, there's no saying how long it's going to take to get back on track. So the best possible case scenario is to just accept the loss for what it is and just tear it all down and start from scratch, and there's no guarantee that that's going to work, but you have to at least try, because what you're doing right now, what you've been doing for this regime and the regime before that, it's not working. So if it's not working, you got to try something new. You can't just keep throwing the same shit against the wall, because it just the product on the field, and this is a business too. So I'm sure Mara's looking at this whole thing like he's gonna eventually the pockets are gonna start getting infected more and more. And then that's when things really start to get dicey in these organizations, is when the money stops coming in. Things gotta change. And I mean, this game too, it's just like, it's so, we knew what it was gonna be to a certain extent, obviously, right? Like, but you know, the Ravens have struggled against lower competition at times this year. But I mean, some of the statistics are just crazy. Like, you talked about the first downs. I mean, they only had 19 first downs. So imagine only having 11 first downs in a game that weren't from penalties. Just 11.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's like that right there is so difficult to win a game with that. And you'll notice in all of these games that we talk about today, every team that lost the running game, like had less rushing yards than the other team, lost this week in the NFC East. You have to be able to run the ball. That has been a constant situation here. Even when Saquon was here, I felt like sometimes it wasn't necessarily just Saquon not being able to run the ball. The game plans are always a little off to me, like the way that they use the running backs in this offense. You know, and obviously, like, a lot of that is Dable, and if you really wanted to, you could put some of that on Kafka. And before they made the turnover on who's calling plays,
probably not this year, but in the past for sure.
Exactly.
And the other thing is that their game scripts probably are getting balled up and thrown out a lot earlier than they want it to be, because they're getting down on the scoreboard. Like, this was a game that, from the defensive standpoint, they were never in this game. One bit. Okay, you get the first possession where Lamar Jackson fumbles the ball in the red zone. They give the New York Giants an opportunity. The following possession, the Baltimore Ravens ended up punting the ball, and then from that point on, our defense could do nothing. They didn't punt again. Yeah, and then they put Lamar Jackson on the bench in the fourth quarter. And what's my man, Josh Johnson?
Yeah.
Didn't even throw the ball one time. They just ran the clock out for the rest of the day. They won this game within 2 quarters before the Giants even had a chance to get their offense going. I thought, from a passing standpoint, right, when you don't have a reliable running game for a quarterback that has been there for 3 weeks, these numbers weren't that bad to me.
I mean, that's one of Neighbor's best games, no? 10 for 82 for a touchdown?
Yeah. It's one of his best games. First touchdown since week 3, you know, and I like the way that this quarterback, Tim Boyle, was just willing to, you know, when we get to this game, we'll talk about this, right? But Jake Haener, his whole thing in the press conference leading up to the game was, you know, I'm a backup. I got nothing to lose. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to just cut it loose, whatever, right? And when he said that, I was like, bro, you need to treat this with more. You need to be more delicate with how you're treating this. You can't just go out here and just be all reckless and just let it rip. You need to go out here and be calculated and methodical and try to win this damn game. I thought Tim Boyle did a good job of that, being there for only 3 weeks. Like the first throw of the game, bro, it opened up my eyes. I'm like, he goes to boot off the play action, and the rusher is right in his. I mean, as soon as he comes off the boot and he turns his shoulder, there's a defender in his face. And he completed the ball. I'm like, oh, this dude, he kind of knows what to expect here. He pushed the ball down the field, and granted, he made a mistake late in this game trying to just, make a play late, and he had the interception. But at the end of the day, pushing the ball down the field, he might have got, I think, 2 or 3 pass interference calls that definitely were chunk plays of 20, 30, whatever, however many yards. He had the back shoulder throw to Malik Neighbors. That was a perfect ball. This is a guy that has not played really. He had a couple of games with the Miami Dolphins this year when Tua was dealing with the concussion stuff where he got in the game, didn't really do much. But I think that this is proof. When you have even if he's a backup journeyman like this guy, I don't even know if we can call Tim Boyle a journeyman, right? Because he has not played enough. Tyrod is a journeyman, but Tim Boyle, I'm like, who is dude, right? But for a guy like that, I think it speaks volumes because of this one point here. The preparation that he has had to deal with. Same thing with guys like Josh Johnson with the Baltimore Ravens. You know that these guys can get into these situations, and they're not going to put up a Tommy DeVito-like type of performance. They're going to be able to get to the line. They're going to have pre-snap adjustments and know what they're seeing a little bit better than some of these younger quarterbacks who don't quite have the experience, which is something that I've always spoke on about Daniel Jones. Like, you look at how he gets to the line and addresses what he sees in front of him versus what we saw from Tyrod Taylor in the limited amount of action that he had with the New York Giants. It's night and day. It's the reason why Tyrod went into that season, and although he took the most dropbacks in 2023, he had the fewest amount of sacks because of his veteran, savvy type of play that he has been doing throughout these years. The experience kicked in. And a guy that's 30 years old and Tim Boyle, like I said, I got to give him his props because 3 weeks, bro, you don't. How did he even learn the playbook in 3 weeks? I don't know if he had any, experience with Brian Dable in this system or anything like that. But he came out there in 3 weeks, and I didn't see one moment in this game where Tim Boyle said to me, yo, dude is just looking panicked out there, and he does not know what's going on in front of him. He looked very prepared. The tight window throw in the whole shot that he did on the left sideline to Malik Neighbors, I mean, we haven't seen a throw like that from a quarterback on the New York Giants all season. No. So, good job from him, but at the end of the day, the supporting cast around him and Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton did nothing in this game. Jalen Hyatt, not even a reception in this game.
Does he have 10 catches even on the year, Jalen Hyatt?
Doubt it. We were halfway through the year, and he had 2 receptions on like 8 targets, man. He's not getting the snaps either. They phased him out. So these guys are not contributing. And offensively, I've had my questions about the weapons that we have on this roster. Especially in that wide receiver core. People are like, oh, no, these guys are good, man. You got all top 3 round talent over there with Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, and then you got Darius Slayton, who was drafted in the 5th, but has proven he can play in this league. These guys aren't getting it done. And you have to find a way to upgrade that room. You talked about, like, the Giants, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but pretty much being, like, not a proactive type of ball club. They wait until all the answers are there for them that say, that guy ain't ready. He's not good enough. That quarterback ain't good enough. This coach has lost enough games. It's finally time to fire him. This wide receiver in Sterling Shepard, he was here for two years too many, if you ask me. Darius Slayton should have been phased out of this roster. We should have been trying to upgrade this room. This guy's been here since 2019, and I'm not saying Darius Slayton is some garbage player, but at the end of the day, you need to upgrade the weapons. So why aren't you doing it? Why are you waiting until Darius Slayton has a lackluster type of season like this, or even waiting until Darius Slayton, who started off 2022 on the damn bench? He was in the doghouse for this regime, right? And then finally you put him on the field and he has a couple of productive games and you go, oh, no, we were missing out on that guy. We need to start playing him more, to the point where you actually re-signed him. Like, what are they doing?
This is more of an issue with the front office, too, because you're missing opportunities to upgrade in either draft capital or other players, right? Like, you think it was like easy for Adam Peters and them to be like, we're going to trade Chase Young and we're going to trade Montez Sweat right now. Like, because eventually it's like, okay, if you're not going to re-sign these guys and they're not producing for you,
get some value.
Why are they still here? Yep. Like, Emmanuel Forbes, first-round draft pick last year.
Out of here.
Gone. No, I mean, he's gone. Jahan Dotson, first-round draft pick the year before that. We got a third-round pick for him.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you would have traded Wan'Dale Robinson or Jalen Hyatt to a wide receiver-needed team at any point in time?
Which they still can, going into next season. They still could. These guys are still under their rookie
But now
contracts.
their values are coming down a little bit.
Right.
Right. And it's like, Dexter Lawrence is a guy, right? But eventually you have to realize that, and this was my problem with my Commanders, was that I was so convinced, like, we have so much talent, right? Like, on the defensive side of the ball specifically, we have so much talent. And then it's like, it just wasn't working. And then we progressively got worse.
Because y'all were a top 10 unit at one point with all those first rounders on that defensive line.
And then it wasn't working. And it was like, you're like, oh, I don't know, like you get attached. But the problem is that eventually their values go down. They're not playing. They're not producing. What you're doing is by holding on hope that it will work at some point, you're holding everybody else back on the field.
And I think you made a really good point there, too. And the other thing is when they're not producing, right, they're also not getting better, right? Because you want to see first-round picks. Okay, maybe these guys don't hit the ground running, right? Maybe a second-round pick like Wan'Dale Robinson doesn't get into the league and have a lot of productive work in his first 2 seasons, but you want to see them getting better. The New York Giants watch these players flatten out pretty much, and then they don't want to make moves on these guys. Fans as well get invested in these players and go, oh, no, we can't get rid of a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson. We can't. Darius Slayton's been our best wide receiver for what? 4 of the 6 seasons that he's been here. We can't get rid of a guy like that. When in return, there are guys like this around the league putting out these kind of numbers that you could literally pull off the streets. Some of these guys not even getting the deserved play time that they do deserve and sitting on the bench when you got guys like Sterling Shepard getting snaps in recent years, Darius Slayton getting snaps in recent years. You have the New York Giants with Joe Shane come in 2022, and right after Dave Gettleman paid Kenny Golladay, they literally put that guy on the bench for the whole damn season. Just wasted the money. What's the point? What is the point? And I don't understand it. It's more reason why I'm so puzzled where the hell the New York Giants are going to go from here. And then you got people now that are saying, even former players are saying this, don't draft a quarterback this year. Trade back, gain assets, get as many picks as you can. We've seen what Joe Shane does with draft picks. Yeah, it's poor.
It's bad. And that's the thing is that, like, you're going into this season with some pretty good draft capital as far as a number of picks, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, I think you guys have a nice amount of picks going into this draft. So
we should have about a good 7 picks at least, maybe. I think we're going to get another comp pick, too, from the Daniel Jones situation.
Yeah, I think that it's just you have an opportunity here to start fresh. There should really be no debate about it. Like, I know, listen, nothing against Brian Dable, but, I mean, buddy, it hasn't worked. It's not working. And Joe Shane is not helping him. And it's like, okay, we're going to keep Joe Shane, and now you have to find a head coach that wants to come into this situation. Not even just a head coach, like, to find a good one. Now you have to find a good one that wants to come into this situation. Mm-hmm. What would make a head coach want to come into this situation would be a fresh start. And
absolutely. I was talking with Stan earlier today about quarterbacks that were inherited by a new GM. There have not been many, and he gave me some really good examples, Justin Herbert being one of them. And then I think the other great example was Dave Gettleman in Carolina with Cam Newton. So there's not many situations that are like that, right, where a GM's going to come in and say, I'm going to keep that quarterback. And obviously the New York Giants with Joe Shane, they come in and they go, oh, we're going to decline Daniel Jones' 5th-year option, but when he goes out there and throws for 15 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns, they go, let's give this guy $160 million over 4 years, which is just fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's a fireable offense.
It really is. It really is. Let's get some of these super chats real quick, and then we'll dive into the next game.
Big shout out to Door Gunner with the $2 super chat. Says, waiting for Shane to draft DJ Ukulele, number 1. Yeah, he declared for the draft. He's going to be a guy that a lot of people are going to look at, and they're going to love his intangibles. and his stature and stuff like that.
His Ross score.
I
love hearing that.
I would be very weary of DJ. He'll probably end up playing in the XFL.
Damn, you just threw big shade on that man. All right, I hear you. Big shout out to Door Gunner for supporting the channel. We appreciate you, brother.
Door Gunner, back-to-back doors with a $5 super chat, says if you are a head coach and your specialty can't be why your team is losing. Giants defense hasn't played well, but the offense is atrocious.
It's terrible. It's been like that now for really 3 seasons. If you think about it, 2022, the offense was not that great. They were middle of the pack, and now the last 2 seasons, they've completely regressed. This reminds me of a point. For head coaches that are attached to a general manager, like this situation with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, I think they're better served by detaching themselves once they get the job so that when these kind of things become speculation and conversations about people being fired, that they don't look at you as a tandem together. Because here's the problem with the whole Brian Daboll thing. In my opinion, there's no way that he will be back as the New York Giants coach without Joe Schoen.
Yes.
Joe Schoen is going to have to keep his job and vouch for Brian Daboll to keep his job for another year, and then he's going to be on a true burning hot seat to try to perform in that last season. If not, they're going to fire him anyway.
Do you think there's a real possibility that both of them come back next year?
Absolutely. Listen, to me, this is how it's going to go down. It's either going to be I think that Joe Schoen is back. That's my thoughts on it. I think that he's back. From what we're hearing from the reports coming out, it seemed like the New York Giants let out a PR press run that they needed to get to all the beat reporters and anybody that covers the New York Giants from within that building. And a lot of it today was like Joe Schoen is pretty much looking like he's probably going to be here. Now, Brian Daboll, I'm not 100% sure. I've told you some of the rumors that I've heard that he's a dead man walking. But for me, it would be Joe Schoen likely coming back without Brian Daboll. First option, not for me, but what I think is going to happen with the New York Giants. Second, I think it'll be both of them stay. Or third, I think both of them get fired.
I think they both need to be fired. I think they both will be fired. If the Giants don't win another game, they have to. There's no way they both come back.
That could change it, but we're dealing with irrational people that own this team, and we've seen irrational decisions being made before these guys got here, right? And this is somebody, a tweet that I brought up on the Giant Overreaction from Passing Paisano, where he was talking about this. He said, if they were truly not going to bring back Joe Schoen, why would they send him on the runs to all the colleges to go scout the quarterback? Why would he be at Colorado's practices? We haven't seen Brian Daboll doing that. I saw Brandon Brown and met him with my own 2 eyes at Maryland USC, right? And Joe Schoen has been going around to all these different colleges, being seen at the Colorado practices, obviously scouting a quarterback. Why would they send him on that run if they knew they were going to fire him? So I'm not saying that he won't get fired, but what I am saying with that information, it is very detrimental that it shows that they have not made that decision that they're going to fire him right now.
That is very true. That is very true. Good point. Big shout out, Door Gunner. Appreciate you, my guy.
Big salute to the homie Door Gunner. Yeah, the New York Giants, man, and it as a person that covers the team and a fan of the team, they have just broken me, bro. Like, I'm sure you remember at the old crib, the like boxed area that I had all the memorabilia and all that stuff in with the signed jerseys and all that helmet stuff. Man, that shit is in my closet now, bro. None of that stuff is out except the Lawrence Taylor helmet that's signed by Lawrence Taylor that Lucas got me. That's the only thing that sits out right there in the studio right there, and a football that actually is from 2020 that for me was to represent where we came from and how bad it was. It's signed by every player on the 2020 roster. I look at the 2023 roster, I thought we'd be in a better place now where I'd be looking at that football like, man, that's the deep, dark past. The dark past is more recent than that and darker than those times that we saw with Joe Judge and with Jason Garrett coaching this team. It's pathetic where the New York Giants are at right now. And like, man, for my sanity, they got to turn this shit around very, 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 very soon. We'll see.
They need to produce some bodies.
It's going to start there. They got to produce another body. I need at least one more body now. I know you and Paulie, y'all probably going to need about 3-4 more bodies before this thing gets right, but I need at least one more body. And for me, it would be Joe Schoen that would be that body, but unfortunately, I think it's going to be Brian Daboll that'll be the scapegoat, if anybody. But we'll see what happens here. Let's get off into this next game, though. I'm definitely excited to talk about this one here. The Cowboys travel to Carolina to take on the Carolina Panthers. Man, them Dallas Cowboys, man, that game a week ago, kind of looking pretty important here. Cowboys are sitting at 6-8. Could have been sitting at, right around 500 here if they could have won that close game a couple of weeks ago without that special teams blunder. The Carolina Panthers fall to 3-11. The beard fell for the smoke in this game. The Panthers were favored by 3. It was the first time that they were favored in a game in 32 straight games. They're not going to be favored again for another, who knows, half a decade here. The over-under was 43. They just got over that by 1 point. The Cowboys end up winning this game 30-14. The Cowboys dominated this game, and the scoreboard in the first half didn't quite truly show how they dominated the game. More first downs, more yards, tripled the Panthers' rushing yards, better on third down, better in the red zone. The Panthers turned the ball over 4 times in this game. It was one of the ugliest first quarters I've seen in the NFC East game this entire year. 3 punts and a fumble. The Panthers started off fumble, punt, interception, punt. There's no way you're going to win a game like that. Should have been 10-0 at the half in favor of the Dallas Cowboys, but the Panthers did get that 83-yard touchdown with seconds left in the first half from Jalen Coker, which was just a big play. He had a pretty big day, went over 100 yards on the day as well. The Cowboys answered with 14 points in the third quarter, tacked on 2 field goals in the fourth to win this game 30-14. The Cowboys, to me, this is one of the most surprising stats about the Cowboys this season. They are 5-2 on the road. They're still 1-6 at home where they've been completely terrible. But the Cowboys have the 5th best road record in the National Football League right now, behind the Lions, who are 6-0 on the road, the Eagles, who are 6-1 on the road and 6-1 at home. Kansas City Chiefs are 6-1 on the road. The Seattle Seahawks are 5-1 on the road, and the Minnesota Vikings are 5-1 on the road. And the Dallas Cowboys fall in underneath them, sitting at 5-2 on the road. Cooper Rush, he's 3-3 now, filling in for Dak Prescott. And what we saw from him when he filled in the first time in 2020, when Dak Prescott broke his leg and whatnot, we thought it was a little bit of smoke the way that this started off with Cooper Rush starting off 1-2, but he has definitely got back on track. I told y'all, I like starting off stuff like that. I told y'all, okay, what did I tell y'all? That Rico Dowdle was going to have a huge day. Rico Dowdle had 25 carries for 149 yards. He's got 3 straight games over 100 yards, and he had 0 in his career entering this season. I talked about the Cowboys being or having the 11th best rushing attack over the past 3 weeks coming into this game, and Carolina allowing 200 rushing yards per game over the last 3 games. This was a recipe for Rico Dowdle, and he went out there and absolutely cooked with the groceries. CeeDee Lamb also had a huge day in this game, 9 receptions for 116, 1 touchdown, 13 targets.
Yeah.
That's 45% of Cooper Rush's targets on the day. He had more than half of the Dallas Cowboys receiving yards on the day as well. What I love about the Dallas Cowboys is, granted, they could have been a team that could have just packed things in, started tanking, trying to get higher draft picks, but they do have their quarterback, and that's normally not the recipe for a team that has their quarterback. But their defense, although they are injured, they're still producing, man. 20 pressures in this game. 6 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, 10 quarterback hurries. I don't understand how you got 10 quarterback hurries in this one, but
that can be confusing.
It can be very confusing. But 7 TFLs on the day, too, and most importantly, 2 interceptions, the 4 turnovers as well. We talked about the keys to victory, and my keys to victory for the Dallas Cowboys in this game was you need to come out there and stop Chuba Hubbard right off the bat. And they did that. 10 rushes for 32 yards for Chuba. I said run all over this Carolina defense, 211 rushing yards as a team. I talked about Mike McCarthy, how he needed to be creative. I thought he would use Kevontae Turpin just a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball in this one, but I think because the running game working as well as it did, he really didn't have to go to his trick bag in this game and run some, those trickery plays where you're trying to catch people on the double reverse and having CeeDee Lamb in the backfield and doing all that nonsense. We talked about Rico Dowdle, huge game. And this one to me was probably the most important. This allowed the Dallas Cowboys to go out here and dog walk the Carolina Panthers. It was protect Cooper Rush. The Panthers had 15 sacks in the past 4 games. They sacked Cooper Rush 1 time. You want to take a guess at how many pressures they had on Cooper Rush in this game?
7.
4 pressures total on the day. Cooper Rush was only hit twice. He was only hurried 1 time. Finished the day 18 of 29 for 214 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Man, that's how you get it done. I'll continue to say this. The Dallas Cowboys are winning the games that they are supposed to win. The Saints game was a game that they should have won. They didn't win. They got dog-walked early on in the season when the Saints had scored over 90 points in their first 2 games. They caught the Saints in the wrong week. There's one more game along the line there with the Atlanta Falcons that they lost, and I think they should have won that game as well. They did compete. They should have won that game. But outside of that, the games that they have lost this season are games that you would have looked at the beginning of the year and said the Dallas Cowboys can lose those type of games. They've been battling. I give them their props. Seems like slowly but surely. Chaz texted me this actually right before we went on live. He said, you think they bring back Mike McCarthy? I said, flip a coin. Contract's up, but Mike McCarthy is battling with a roster that has been depleted with injuries. And to see this defense going out there and improving week to week, I think this is a good thing for the personnel. I don't know if they're going to bring back Mike Zimmer. I don't know if they're going to bring back Mike McCarthy. But so far, right now, at this point in the season, the Dallas Cowboys have impressed me with the way that they have battled and fought through the injuries and won some games that, yeah, they were supposed to win, but that is if they had their starting quarterback in the lineup, and they're doing all this with Cooper Rush. So I am impressed. I know the Carolina Panthers are not a great team, but I am impressed that the Dallas Cowboys are still battling.
They were playing good leading up into this matchup. They're playing the best that they've been playing all year, the Carolina Panthers, that is. I mean, listen, this is why I had Dallas at 8-9 to start the year. They had a brutally tough schedule, and I had concerns about the run game. But like in my tweet promoting tonight's show, I said Dallas gets back to the winning formula because what they did in this game, is how Dallas has won games and how Dallas can win games. Stopping
way back,
the run.
Though. Not this year, right?
Yeah. But they can win games in this year with this formula, but they haven't been able to run the ball up until the last 3 weeks of the season.
That's the point that I was getting at. They couldn't run the ball for shit this year. And this formula that was the Zeke formula is kind of working now. You're right.
And they couldn't stop the run. And in this game, they did both. They held Chuba Hubbard to 3.2 yards per carry, 32 yards on 10 attempts. Rico, you mentioned 25 for $149. The 4 turnovers, what has been Dallas's recipe to success in these past couple of years defensively? Forcing turnovers.
Takeaways.
They forced 4 turnovers, 10 points off of those turnovers.
I want to say back-to-back years, they led the league in takeaways. It was
back-to-back. I'm pretty sure it was back-to-back years.
21 and 22, I think it was.
Kai's in the chat. No, Monique's in the chat. You let us remind us if that was the case. And they only had 1 turnover. And the big difference is Dallas gets those points off of those 4 turnovers. Carolina doesn't get any points off of those turnovers. Bryce Young just had a bad day. Day. 2 fumbles, 2 picks. Can't win like that. The sacks, Dallas back in the backfield again. 6 sacks and 4 turnovers. That sounds like when Dallas was winning games, right?
Yeah,
those are the defensive numbers right there. The thing that's crazy, and in Carolina, 3 of 11 on 3rd down. You can't win games like that. We know that. The plays. Dallas ran 70 plays. Carolina had 50.
Lopsided.
And you'll notice that's another thing that's kind of similar in a lot of these matchups is the stark difference in the amount of plays ran by these teams. And you're able to run those sort of run the difference in those plays, right? 70 to 50. If you're able to run the ball, and if you're able to stop the run on the other team, because eventually Carolina can't run the ball, they got to pass the ball. Next thing you know, they're going 3 and out. They end up running 50 plays. But when Dallas
sustaining those drives is so important.
This is the type of team game that Dallas would have needed to play consistently, especially when Dak goes down. Giving Cooper Rush the opportunity to throw 3 touchdowns. I mean, the completion percentage is obviously still a little bit left to be desired. And I mentioned he only has 1 game over 60% passing completion, and that was against Washington. But
you mentioned that on the preview. Yep.
It's good to see Rico Dotto but this is the thing too, is like Dallas is still going to need to address a lot of these situations here. And I think that the money situation is starting to come up with them, and they're going to have a huge decision with Micah Parsons moving forward. But there's a lot
come out and say he's a Dallas Cowboy for life.
Yeah. So we'll see how all that.
If you can't, I'll continue to say it. Like, could you imagine the Dallas Cowboys allowing Micah Parsons to hit free agency? How fucking crazy that would be. Who a player of that caliber, I can't even think of a guy that has been allowed to hit free agency at the peak prime of his career before he got any bag on the defensive line. We saw it with Saquon, right? Saquon never got his bag from New York, and he became a free agent. But at the end of the day, you just don't see that happen with guys like Javon Curse. You just hit the free agent market. You see it with like a Jadeveon Clowney, right? But you don't see it with a guy that's top 3 at that position, which is
Watt.
Yeah, you're just never going to see that. So I think it would be foolish for them to not bring him back.
Hypothetically, you think he's definitely worth a first-round pick in return, right? If not
2
more?
of them.
If
I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'm not trading Michael Parsons because Kai just brought up he's under contract for another year, right?
About the trade.
So
the trade
would you trade him for a 1 and like a 4th? Fuck no. Hell no. Bro, remember when Khalil Mack got traded?
Yeah,
do you remember the haul they got for him, bro? They got 2 first-rounders for him. And then when he got traded the second time, they got a haul for him again.
I don't think that it would be wise. I think you'd have to get Dak and CD to restructure. You'd have to draft.
I don't even think you have to do that. They have money going into next year. You know, and when you write up these contracts, you can write it like a Jalen Hurts contract. Push the money into the future.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to have Michael Parsons having a big cap hit in his first year or 2. You don't have to. Most teams are going to structure it like that if they're smart about it. So I don't think it's a no-brainer for me with Michael Parsons. Like, you can't let that guy go to free agency. We just saw DeMarvion Overshown tear his knee again.
Yeah.
They're now strapped at the position. DeMarcus Lawrence is getting older. He dealt with that foot injury all year. He's been on IR. What would be the answer there? So I think that the Dallas Cowboys need to come back. I know Jerry said that they were all in this year. I would reboot, Control, Alt, Delete, and do this shit again. Get me another running back now that you have some money in the salary cap department. Get me a better running back, whether it be through the draft or through the free agency, to pair with Rico Dowdle, because Rico Dowdle can be a back that you use in a running back by committee type of situation. Role. Yeah, he can do that. You know, you just need another guy that's going to be able to, that you know you can rely on, right? Yeah. He doesn't have to be running back 1. He could be a Devin Singletary caliber of a running back. Address that. Try to bring in some new weapons in the draft. Bolster up the defense a little bit.
Too.
Yeah, and pray to God that you get healthy. You know, the kid Jalen Tolbert, man, he's been showing out the last couple of weeks. They got great depth at the tight end position already, right? As long as everyone's healthy out there, with Ferguson out there, I think that the Dallas Cowboys just hit a tough spot. When you look at a team, there's only one other team in the NFL that I would compare to them, and it's the San Francisco 49ers, right? Because they hit the injuries at the thick of the season when you need to win those games to be able to get to this point in the season and still give your team a shot late in the year. I think the Dallas Cowboys roster is not as bad as many people think. It's been the injuries. I'll continue to say that. It's been the first place schedule. And now you're going to come back. They're likely going to have a third place schedule. It looks like the Washington Commanders and the Eagles are going to take spots 1 and 2. So you'll come back into 2025 with a third place schedule with that roster, getting your quarterback back. I think the Dallas Cowboys are in a better position than a lot of people think.
It's an interesting way of looking at it for sure. I think there's definitely pieces there that I can agree with you on. It's tough. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with McCarthy, because the situation is just a little bit different than normal because he's on his last year of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of makes it really interesting. So, and it looks like Rico his contract must be up after this.
Yeah, he's been there for a while. I know that. He was there during the first Zeke stint.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he don't strike me as a guy that's going to get a lot. $4 million. Think about it like this. Devin Singletary got $5.5 million this past free agency period with the New York Giants. I don't think that Rico Dowdle has. No, they're not the same age.
Rico's younger, maybe.
I mean, Devin Singletary dates all the way back to 2017 with the Buffalo Bills. He was on that playoff
team. David
team.
Montgomery were the same draft class.
I think Rico's a couple of years younger. Yeah. I would say Devin Singletary is 27, about to be 28, I believe. I would say Rico's probably 26. That'd be my guess. I'm not 100. It depends on how old he was when he came out.
In the league, yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't give Rico, point being is I wouldn't give Rico Devin Singletary type of money. Like, what team would pay a guy like Rico Dowdle that kind of money? I don't think they would do that just yet. Unless he finishes the year extremely strong. He's been a very lackluster running back for about 3/4 of the season.
Cowboys passed on Zach Moss at $3 million.
A lot of teams did. Yeah, a lot of teams did. Giants could have scooped up Zach Moss. Zach Moss is a really interesting running back. He's that guy that can put up a major dud in a game. Like, he can also give you 100 yards on the ground out of nowhere too. But, I had him on my fantasy team for a couple of years straight, actually. And he's just, I think Zach Moss is in that same category of a Devin Singletary. I think he's right there.
There's a lot of these running backs in the league that just are complimentary running backs.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is to it.
And as they get older, teams aren't willing to give them that type of money. I was surprised that Joe Shane went out there and paid Singletary the kind of money that he got. When you look at the running back market, right? Derrick Henry got $8 million. I know he took a team-friendly deal to go play with Lamar Jackson, but he got $8 million, and Devin Singletary gets $5.5. What world are we living in? What world are we living in? I don't get it. Oh, Joe Mixon got about $8 million too. What are we doing here? Joe Mixon has been, remember when we did, I think this was on our show, not the Giant Overreaction show. We talked about running backs that had been in the top 10 over the past, since Saquon had came in the league. Mm-hmm. Joe Mixon was at the top of that list with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was number 1. Joe Mixon was number 2 with Nick Chubb. I think both of them have been in the top 10 in 4 seasons since they've been in the league in 2018. Devin Singletary is a guy that has never rushed for 1,000 yards. I can't put him in that category with those guys. Zach Moss, I wouldn't put in that category either, but I do think they're capable. Those are the kind of caliber running backs that it'd be cool to pair with a Rico Dowdle, but Dallas will have the money to spend next year. I mean, I'm not saying go out there and pay a Saquon Barkley or nothing like that, but upgrade that position because it's important. It's important to the way that offense operates, to the point that you made a little while ago. Like, when Dallas is good, they're running the ball well.
It's a big difference. You got to be able to run the ball. Got to be able to stop the run. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and like that team is just built for that. It's like there are quarterbacks in this league. I'll always say that you have quarterbacks that need the running game, and you have quarterbacks that are elite that don't necessarily need it. And Dak Prescott is right there. He's been trying to knock on that door a ton, trying to get into that elite category, but he's just a good quarterback, And I'd say of all those guys in that range, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, they're all really good quarterbacks, but they need the running game. And I think that's where Detroit was smart enough to go, let's draft a running back in the top 10 for our quarterback here. And Jahmyr Gibbs has completely panned out.
I was like, I couldn't believe that. I was very critical of Detroit in that draft. And man, was I wrong about that. They nailed it.
I think people get too caught up in just like the NFL, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the cliches and the stereotypes, right? Like, I can't draft a running. Saquon had a lot to do with people's opinions on drafting a running back in the top 10. They're like, that's not going to take you over the hump. And then you see a team like that do it, and you're like, why are they doing that? And now you understand why. For me, I think people need to sometimes forget all of the cliches and all the shit that we've heard in the NFL. Is that guy going to come into my team and be able to contribute in a major way? Then spend the draft capital on him.
I love it.
And teams have made mistakes on that. I think about Kyle Pitts as a guy that was drafted in the top 10 where it's like, why? Dude, I was first rounder Michael Mayer, another guy, like, why? Why? I understand, these guys are getting all the hype, but why are we spending on, does that guy really transition to make you a better football team? Brock Bowers now, on the other hand, and that was a guy that Saban told Brian Dable, listen, it's Brock Bowers, it's Malik Neighbors. And I think more people need to trust those type of resources too, like those people that really know ball. And I hope the Giants can bring in somebody like that. But I think, and we'll see, we'll come back to this podcast and this moment years down the line. I really think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be fine. This season is just a bit of a hiccup for them because strength of schedule, and obviously we listed the injuries on the last show, man. How many of those guys you think that I listed was in the starting lineup?
At least 11.
At least 11, right? So you're talking about damn near a side of a ball that has been on the IR and been injured. And to be sitting here right now, kind of in the mix here, 6 wins on the season, it's kind of interesting. I think the Dallas Cowboys have shown they're a resilient ball club, but we'll see where it goes from here. I hope they finish strong and, get a couple of more wins.
Strong.
I know you got the game against them and whatnot. It's going to be a big game. You know they're going to try to play spoiler against y'all that last game of the year. All right, well, let's talk about your team, man. Let's go off into this Commanders recap here. I thought this was going to be a walk in the park for the Washington Commanders, but they've just been making things difficult the last couple of weeks. They traveled to New Orleans to take on the New Orleans Saints. All right, let's talk about these Washington Commanders, who did improve to 9-5. The Saints fell to 5-9. The Commanders were favored by 7.5 in this game. They ended up winning by just 1 point, 20-19. The Saints had won the past 3 meetings and 4 of the last 6 games versus Washington. This win gives the Commanders their 9th win of the season. It's their best record through 14 games since 1992. We talked about that on the preview show. I'm sure the Beard's extremely hype about that. The Saints are now 0-4 without Derek Carr in the lineup. And remember, I talked about Derek Carr and his, I want to say it was his passer rating, not his QBR. I want to say it was his passer rating, was 6th in the NFL, but he just hasn't played a lot of games this year. The touchdown to interception ratio was sitting around 3-1 before this week, and he obviously didn't play in this week. I can't remember the exact numbers, but he's played pretty decent ball this year, and the Saints have struggled without him in the lineup. Jake Haener, who has probably the illest photo shoot we've ever seen from an NFL quarterback in the history of the game, got to start in this one. And I told y'all before, he said, I got nothing to lose. Well, he lost his second half snaps in this game because he was playing that garbage. The Saints ended up benching him and bringing in Spencer Rattler in the second half. And I thought that they should have just started Spencer Rattler from the jump. Like, are they looking at Jake Haener? And this is the crazy part, though, because in the preseason, Jake Haener did have a lot of success in games where Spencer Rattler kind of struggled. I was like, Jake Haener's
a lot of people
experience
liked
is
him
showing.
out of Fresno State too. Like he was a guy that was kind of like flying on under, but on people's radar coming out of Fresno State.
Do you remember where he was drafted at?
I think he was a 5th rounder.
Maybe a 5th rounder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed clear in this game that now at this point, because you can't forget that in the preseason, Spencer Rattler just got to the league. He's just trying to, he's wet behind the ears, trying to get his feet wet. And he was struggling a little bit in preseason. But one thing that I noticed about Spencer Rattler in the preseason, and I clipped this up, and, I was focusing on a lot of these quarterbacks that were rookies in the league and showing people a lot of compilations of them as well. But I clipped together his 2-minute drill that he had in his first preseason game where he led the Saints down the field and scored a touchdown. I was like, damn, this dude kind of has like that it factor. Now, the Commanders, when Spencer Rattler came into the game, they damn near blew a 3-score lead in the second half of this one. And I would say that the big moment in this game that really gave Spencer Rattler his big opportunity was when former New York Giants kicker Greg Joseph missed the 54-yard field goal with 1:55 to go, which would have put the Commanders up 23-10 in that game. 2 scores with 1:55 left. That game's all but over. But I do think that is it's a big window and opportunity in this game, and it's a coaching moment where you got this guy, Greg Joseph, who has not been that great on the season for multiple teams, and you forego punting the ball and relying on your defense to end the game, and instead you give the New Orleans Saints a short field, which allowed them to drive down the field. The Rat led them all the way down 56 yards, converted on a 4th and 3 in the red zone to Foster Moreau with 11 seconds left ticking on the clock with no timeouts left. The referees screw it completely up and end up stopping the clock and then go to the replay and say, this is not a reviewable play. We can't run the clock off. So it gave them that extra play to be able to score the touchdown that gave them an opportunity to end up going for a 2-point conversion to take the lead with no time left on the clock. Now, Saints go for the 2-point conversion. It was a very vanilla type of play. It was just a out route from the X-wide receiver, which I thought was really interesting. You're not giving yourself a lot of room on the sideline. Spencer Rattler kind of booted out to his right, and the throw was kind of on target, but just the window was just too small for him, and the Washington Commanders end up going on to win this game. Spencer Rattler finished very similar to like a Cooper Rush with the completion percentage. He was 10 of 21, not all that great. 135 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. The number for me that really stood out was that he was not sacked at all in the second half. And that speaks volumes to what the Washington Commanders were doing up front on the defensive side of the ball, but also Rattler being a guy that is savvy, can get rid of the ball quickly, is decisive. Enough of Spencer Rattler. Let's talk about a real, true rookie quarterback out here that's really doing damage, which is Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels, man, he's a dude. He's just a dude. He's coming off of back-to-back games with multiple passing touchdowns for the first time in his career, and he did it again. Went out there, put up 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 25 of 31 for 226. This is becoming what we expect from Jayden Daniels in a game. Just over 200 yards, take care of the ball, give you a couple of touchdowns, get Terry McLaurin involved in the game plan. He had an interception in all 3 games leading up to this game, and he went into this game and had 0 turnovers on Sunday versus the Saints. Everyone is talking about the 8 sacks that he took on the day. Shout out to my homie Deuce, man. He posted the compilation of all the sacks, which saved me a lot of time of having to go back through the game and really look at the sacks and see how it's happening. We do know that mobile quarterbacks tend to get sacked more than quarterbacks who are not mobile. These immobile quarterbacks know that I'm not going to get out of this situation. Let me just throw the ball away. Whereas mobile quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels reminds me a lot. This might be a crazy comp for a lot of people. Jaden Daniels reminds me of Houston Texans' Deshaun Watson. He can make all the big throws down the field. He can beat you with his legs, but he's not going to go out there and do like Lamar Jackson type shit with his legs, right? But if you give him the lane, he's going to take the lane. It just reminds me of Deshaun Watson, a young version of him, being able to evade the sacks. But let's not forget, Deshaun Watson was a quarterback that I believe in 2020 was sacked. He was in the top 10 of most sacks by a quarterback ever. I want to say it was over 65 sacks. Don't quote me. It might be over 70. It might be. But of these sacks that Jaden Daniels took on the day, 3 of them were at the line of scrimmage where they were just no gains, where he realized he didn't have nothing. He tried to run it and got out of bounds. So that kind of removes 3 of them for me. Okay, he didn't gain yards on it, but he was not tackled for a sack. One of them was a coverage sack where it's an interesting play too. Commanders had 2 checkdowns in the flats. I can't remember if it was 2 running backs or not. I think it was. But he went to go look to his right for the check down. Down the field, there was nothing there. He wasn't going to get all the way around from his first check down on his right.
Was wide open?
I don't think it was, unless Zacchaeus was open in the backfield. It was behind the line of scrimmage.
It wasn't behind the line of scrimmage, but he was like in the flats, like a little bit.
Probably not the same play because I should have clipped it up, but it was the play where homie's in the backfield and he waved his hand to him like I'm open. And he was behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I think that's the same play.
But he couldn't see him. It's like, you're going through the progressions. It looked like Jaden Daniels started off sort of down the middle looking at the safety, and then he moved to his right. And then by the time he was running out of time, I can't expect him to go do a 180 to then check down to the other side. So he took a sack on that play. 2 of the sacks were just solid ones. One of them was from Chase Young, and the other one was from what's my OG over there? Cam
Hayward.
Cam Hayward, is that? I don't know why I get him mixed up with homie from the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's another OG.
Yeah.
Maybe it is Cam Hayward. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But he got the sack on him. Jaden Daniels got up, was laughing about it as well. The last sack, though, that he took on the day was detrimental. His feet got kind of tangled up, not even from a yardage standpoint. His feet got tangled up underneath of him in like a weird way, and he came up hobbling. Now, I looked at some clips that J.P. Finley released after the game where Jaden Daniels went to go speak to some kids or something at some event right after the game. Bro is limping. Literally limping, walking up to the podium, and his left hand looked like he had some damage done to his left hand. Now, I'm just speculating. But on the day, when I looked at the pressures on Jaden Daniels, I could not believe my fucking mind. He was pressured 25 times in this game, and that is who I knew it wasn't Hayward. It's Cam Jordan. Cameron Hayward is on Pittsburgh. Jaden Daniels was pressured 25 times in this game. That's unacceptable from that offensive line. I think that this is one of the worst performances from that offensive line all year long. I've been giving Bobby Johnson his props over there. Sacked 8 times, obviously. 0 quarterback hits. He was hurried 17 times. Being hurried 17 times and being pressured 25 times is unacceptable. But in the end, I say all that to say, Jaden Daniels, I heard some Commanders fans talking about he didn't have that great of a game.
Bruh.
And I don't understand what people are watching because I've been one who has been very on the side of a quarterback helps, and it does fix things, obviously. But with the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels is not the sole reason why the Commanders are now sitting at 9 wins on the season. I've talked about the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach, bringing in a new owner, new general manager, new personnel, literally only have about 4 or 5 players left from the last regime, right? I'm starting to renege on that a little bit, though. Because I truly feel like if you don't have a quarterback that is like a Jaden Daniels or better, there is no way that the Washington Commanders would be in these games. Jaden Daniels accounted for 292 of the 326 yards that the Washington Commanders totaled on Sunday. He was the Commanders' leading passer, obviously, but he was the Commanders' leading rusher as well, just by a yard. But he had 11 carries for 66 yards to go with the passing yards that he had on the day of just over 220. He had little help from his running game. We've talked about Brian Robinson making this whole thing move. He's the guy that when he is having success, the Washington Commanders are having success. And in this game, he just wasn't having it. 21 rushes. I love the number of attempts. 65 yards on 21. That's not going to get it done. and yet instill Jaden Daniels with Terry McLaurin, who balled out in this game as well, got the necessary lead. And although in the second half you guys could not get anything going, no touchdown drives, it was still enough to win the game. All on the back of a rookie quarterback who has literally only played 14 games in his professional career. I can't wait to see what Jaden Daniels does in his second year. Listen, I think that what he's doing this season is equally or more impressive than what we saw from C.J. Stroud in his rookie season. Granted, the schedule here presents an alley-oop for Jaden Daniels because it's a fourth-place schedule. Love how he's getting Terry McLaurin involved in these game plans. Terry McLaurin did need 104 yards to reach 1,000 yards for his fifth consecutive season. He fell just short, had 7 receptions for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, Terry McLaurin, they are masking hella personnel issues that the Washington Commanders have on both sides of the ball. Because listen, quite frankly, y'all wide receiver core is not enough. If you put any other quarterback that is beneath the skill set of a Jaden Daniels in that offense, the Washington Commanders could be a 4-win team right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Think about how many more sacks the Saints would have had if Jaden Daniels wasn't the quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, like that number would have been even crazier. And what's interesting too is you look at the yards lost on those 8 sacks. I think it was 34 yards on the 8 sacks.
Yeah.
Like that's like, you know, that
it was 37. It was 37 actually, because I compared him to, it was either another quarterback from the NFC East recap or from this game, possibly both the quarterbacks. They had 3 sacks for 37 yards. And Jaden Daniels gets sacked 8 times for 34 yards. It speaks to that point of getting back to the line. Those 3 where he gets no gain, I think that the NFL might want to revisit that. If a quarterback gets back to the line of scrimmage,
that's what I thought it was too. I thought it had to be a negative in order for it to be a sack.
If you don't gain yards, it's a sack.
No positive yardage.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Sunday morning I said it. I said, Biotish is sick and he is going to be out. That, for those of you that don't know, that is the starting center for the Washington Commanders. And it was a huge problem not having Biotish at center in this game. And, you know, most people would be like, oh, well, a lot of the pressure came from the edges. Very true. But the amount of mistakes that were made, you know, on the offensive line, a lot of that is controlled by Biotish. He is the voice of that offensive line. There's a lot of mistakes. Sam Cosmi, who's, you know, considered to be top 5 guard in the NFL, had by far his worst game of the season in this matchup here. So, you know, losing Biotish had an impact on Jaden Daniels, had an impact on the running game. The running game, this is the worst run game blocking-wise that this offensive line has had the entire season, you know. And I thought the way that they came out the gate on that first drive, I love it. The fast pace, no huddle, that offense, it just, Jaden seems very comfortable in that offense when everything's kind of just moving along. And it's not even just necessarily like fast paced, because obviously, you know, they do some things at the line of scrimmage. I thought that was really interesting, and I would love to see more of that throughout the game.
Man, you just sparked a great point that I want to make. If you've been seeing Tua get in front of the media after the games, 3 times now he has said that the play is coming in late on the play clock. So by the time he gets to the line, when he has to call all of that pre-snap motion that Mike McDaniels loves, they don't have time to get out of the play. So he complained about when he gets to the line, a lot of the times he has to hurry up with the motion and just say hike, right? Yeah. 3 times, there's somebody made a thread of it on Twitter of all the times that he has complained about it. Whereas Washington, remember I went to the film breakdown with Daryl Tapp and y'all wide receiver coach as well, Bobby Ingram. And they talked about running a hurry-up style offense. One thing that they didn't say, though, was that they were going to hurry up and get to the line, but not necessarily snap the ball quickly. Mm-hmm. Washington gets to the line with 20 seconds left on the play clock, and then they're able to dissect, make the decisions with the coach in Jaden Daniels' ear up until the last 10 seconds, I believe it is, to be able to diagnose what is in front of them. It's a stark difference from what you're seeing in Miami, and you're seeing a quarterback that's complaining about it, and here you are talking about it with Jaden Daniels being one of the things that benefit him as the quarterback for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, and we've seen it multiple times this year. I just wish it would be they use it a little bit more. Like, I know how, sometimes you don't want to, I'm not asking you to do it every drive, obviously, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I would just like to see it mixed in a little bit more than what they normally do. The game was very sloppy. It was almost like at times it felt like they were sleepwalking through it, and I know the missing Biotis was really, really, really tough on the offensive line. And, it wasn't like we knew like a day or two before. It was literally that morning, and you talked about this a little bit with Drew Lock, like seeing the difference that he had the week after when he had all those reps with the first team, as opposed to knowing the morning of or the day before.
The numbers didn't support it because he damn near broke the record when he went 0 for 8. But but he did look more comfortable.
So like, and as an offensive lineman and being the center, like that's very critical. I mean, Jaden made some amazing plays. The two touchdown passes to Terry McLaurin were a thing of beauty. The one where he literally falls to the ground, his knee hits the ground, he jumps back up. I mean, he threw a dart.
I didn't like the first one. I didn't like because who was that? Kool-Aid McKinstry could have picked that off if he just turned around. Because Terry McLaurin was going across the end zone. McKinstry's in coverage on somebody else, but it literally was like in the lane of the ball, and he just didn't look at it. But the second one on the back left of the end zone, my God, what a throw! But he fit it in the window nonetheless. It was a dangerous throw. That's what I said.
It was a danger. When he threw it, I was like, oh God! And then you saw Brian Robinson's on the ground, like hurt. I'm like, what's going on? It was a tough situation, but just the ability to make that, to have the chance to make that dangerous throw is something that you don't get from every other quarterback. And the 24-yard run that he had, and obviously there were a couple of misses. I thought that there was two instances where he missed checkdowns that he had an opportunity to hit the check down on. And obviously the two Terry McLaurin, two Terry McLaurin passes. It was 3. The 2 overthrows and then the 1 underthrow, and obviously there was one on there that Terry kind of slows up on. And it was interesting because somebody brought up to me the fact that if you look at a lot of these plays where him and Jaden miss, a lot of it is on, not a lot of it is on, but there are instances where Terry slows down on his route. And somebody brought up the fact that he's so used to all of these years of not having a quarterback that can make that throw, that he's naturally slowing down at certain points in his route.
I don't believe that.
And I didn't really think about it. And
there's instinct to wide receiver that, when you get the head around, you adjust to the ball.
Yeah.
Sometimes and most deep concepts, you're gonna be able to get your head around.
Mm-hmm. And on the second one, or the one where he underthrew him, I think Jaden just, I think he was trying to compensate for the 2 overthrows, But like, those are 3 big plays that he missed. Terry on the sideline and the 2 Terry deep balls that, all 3 of those plays could have been touchdowns, And if you think about it, those are 3 of his 6 incompletions are on those plays where he's just missing
6
him.
on the day. The biggest miss for me was one that he didn't throw. It was the post corner 7 route to Diami Brown, who was wide open on the right side of the field, and Jaden Daniels ended up taking a sack on that play. I thought that was one of the ones where I was just like, but I can't nitpick his game. He's a rookie. I expect him to miss throws, right? And I think we're getting a little bit too accustomed to his accuracy being, A1 throughout the year. And then when you see him miss a couple of throws, it's kind of like, that's not normal, But at the end of the day, I think he's still a rookie. Completion percentage was 4th best in the league coming into this game. 6 balls hit the ground.
Yeah. And 3 of them were like the ones that I just talked about, where it's like inches off from being touchdowns. And it's something that I look at this sometimes as the Mahomesian effect, where I think people are so caught up sometimes that they don't realize that, like, going 25 for 31 for 226 and 2 touchdowns and 66 yards rushing and getting a win, and then saying, I don't think he played all that well. It's like,
it's crazy. Especially, he accounted for like 90% of the offense. Like, I don't understand what people are watching, but at the end of the day, I will say this and give those people the benefit of the doubt. It takes a bit of research. It takes a bit of patience. It takes a bit of redundancy going back and watching these games over and over, because maybe I leave the Washington game as I'm watching it simultaneously with my game as well and go, it's an average game from Jaden Daniels, 2 touchdowns, it ain't all that great, right? But then when you go back and you really look at it and really do the due diligence, I think that's when you really see the things that were left out there and also how great of a game he had.
Yeah, and like I said, he had some misses, and like I think there was 8 sacks, and I think I had 4 of them. I think I had 3 of them on him, 1 coverage, and then the other ones were just offensive line just kind of collapsed a little bit. And if you make those big plays, it changes a lot of the numbers too, because it's really interesting is that Washington dominated in a lot of this game. And some people think that because the game was so close and stuff like that, statistically, Washington really played a good game, especially defensively. People were really upset with the defense. And I'm like, they had a bet that the second half was not great, right?
Yeah, stopping the run was tough in the second half when Kamara went out.
And I talked about Kendre Miller being a guy to kind of keep your eye out on too. But Marshawn Lattimore was a huge difference maker. He didn't even get targeted in this game, albeit, we're talking about a Saints wide receiving core that's just depleted.
And two quarterbacks, just the quarterback
exactly.
play not good.
You know what I'm saying? But we ran 74 plays to their 51 plays. The big difference was we only averaged 4.4 yards per play, where they averaged 4.8 yards per play, And the penalties were, and I feel like I talk about this more than I should be over the course of the season, especially within the last quarter of the season. The penalties have just been absolutely brutal. They're talking about 9 penalties for 84 yards. 3 of those penalties took away first down conversions, and then I had one of those penalties on a third down that made it 3rd and 23. 4 of the sacks came on third downs too, which is kind of brutal too. So, and all that being said, Washington was still fairly good on third down.
Joe Burrow has a good quote about that, though. Why quarterbacks take sacks on third down? They're not going to get the 4th down to be able to get that play. So they're willing to hold the ball and try to make a play till the last minute. So I don't mind sacks too much on third down unless you're taking your team out of scoring range.
Yeah, out of field goal range, which was the case on 2 of those 4 sacks. There were a couple of plays that I was a little concerned about. They threw the ball twice on 3rd and 2. I don't know how much of that, was because Biotish in the run game, just wasn't cohesive in that game. So, that's kind of, I take that. And then there was the 3rd and goal play where they were from the 1-yard line. And instead of running Brian Robinson, they like to run this QB counter. And it didn't work out very well. I think we lost 5 yards on that play. You don't want to see them run that too much with Daniels. I thought there was a couple of times where I thought Daniels made a bad read, but for the most part, the 24-yard run was amazing, especially that we needed that conversion there too. I think
it was 3rd and 14.
Yeah, so that was a huge play too. But they missed field goal also, but it was just a lot. I thought that De'Ami Brown made some big plays. He made the big first down, and it got called back on a penalty. He also had a penalty in the game too. So, but the thing is that's interesting is, given all this, yes, we could have easily lost this game. Don't get me wrong. Obviously the Saints scored on every single possession in the second half. That's not very good defense, obviously. We could have lost this game, but it's interesting because I'm going to go to the roadmap now, and I talk about this week in and week out as one of the last things on the roadmap, right? The last 3 things, turning the car off when you get to the road, the victory, right? You got to turn the car off, you got to take your seatbelt off, unlock the door. The last 3 steps to getting there, right, is winning time of possession, winning the turnover battle, and winning third down. Because if you can manage to do those 3 things, you can squeak away with some victories. It's not going to happen all the time, obviously, but some of those things are going to be able to mask a lot of the mistakes and the inefficiencies, especially in this situation with the run game. When you look at the numbers, it's not that bad, but it's not the type of production that this particular offense needs from the running game to be successful as they can be. And especially against a better team, Philadelphia this upcoming week. But as far as the roadmap goes, I wanted to run the ball for 180 yards. We ended up getting 137. So we didn't quite get there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The big one was the 3rd and 5 average to go. It was not there. Average distance on 3rd down was 7.58 yards. So,
it's not great. It's not great.
Not great.
It's not terrible, but yeah.
And a lot of those, though, came from 3rd and 14s. There was some egregious 3rd down distances. Because there were a lot of 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s. And a lot of that was because of Jaden Daniels picking up yardage on the 2nd downs. A lot of those little scrambles, those 4-yard scrambles and stuff like that. I said we needed to score at least 28 points. We only scored 20 points. I said we needed to hold New Orleans.
I thought that number was too high for the Saints.
Yeah. We needed to hold New Orleans under 100 yards rushing. We did. They only ran the ball for 69 yards. But a lot of that had to do with Kamara getting hurt,
Well, not really. I mean, he got hurt in the 4th quarter. He wasn't having a good day to begin with.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he came out. I don't think he played at all in the 2nd half.
He did. He did. I remember I got notes on it when I rewatched the game today.
Really?
Yeah. In the 4th quarter was when he was out.
Because I know he went in, the last time I remember him, really playing was after he caught the touchdown pass on the trick play. And then I don't really remember seeing him as much. I thought it was more Miller for the rest of that point.
I remember I wrote it down as I did it, but did they score a touchdown in the 1st half? The
No.
Saints? They didn't. So that goes to show you played in the 2nd half right there.
So then the last 3, what I was just talking about, was what kind of our saving grace was winning the time of possession. 40 minutes and 50 seconds, Washington, to 19 minutes and 10 seconds for Seattle. Turnovers, we had 0. They had the 1 turnover. And 3rd down, we were 9 of 17, above 50% on offense.
Y'all had a turnover? What was y'all turnover in this game?
No, they had a turnover.
They had a turnover.
Yeah,
I thought so. Okay.
Yeah, so we won the turnover battle. And then we also won 3rd down on offense by being over 50%, which is what I would kind of look for. You want to be at least over 50%. We were 9 of 17. And the New Orleans Saints were 3 for 11 on 3rd down. So we did pretty well on 3rd down defense. So
3 for 11 is crazy.
It was a weird game. A lot of it was a weird game at times. And I mean, there was the clock mismanagement, not necessarily mismanagement, but malfunctioning by the refs.
Mismanagement. They stopped that motherfucker when they weren't supposed to.
Yeah. and then even the field goal attempt at the end of the 1st half, that was a whole weird thing too. And then, the penalty, the unnecessary roughness penalty on the field goal in the first drive for the Commanders that allowed us to actually score that touchdown drive. That felt like we were going back and forth between the goal line and the 20-yard line for 15 minutes, bro. I don't know what the hell was going on down there, but it was all in all, it could have been bad. This was you could not lose this game. You had to win this game. So the fact
Rams
that
is on y'all ass.
Yeah. So the fact that we got out of this game with a win, it was absolutely huge, because now we're pretty much, in control of our own destiny. Even if we do lose to Philadelphia next week, we're still, in control of our destiny, and we own a hell of tiebreakers over almost everybody else in the conference. So that's a positive.
Oh, so y'all can because the Rams are at 8 wins now, so y'all can lose to Philly this upcoming week. But if y'all win out the last 2, no matter what happens, you'll still get in. It's good. For me, the biggest key to victory here was stopping Alvin Kamara. And that's why I was telling you, I really studied this game from his perspective. And it was interesting. He didn't really get the necessary touches in this game early on. And you would think that they would have relied on him, being that they had Jake Haener as the starting quarterback. I thought it was all but, guaranteed that Kamara was going to get to the 1,000 yards in this game. He only needed 62 rushing yards to get to 1,000 for the first time in his career. And he just ended the day with just not a good day from Alvin Kamara, just 12 yards rushing. He did have 4 receptions for 58, a big bulk of that coming on that touchdown catch, amazing one-handed catch, and the pass came from former Dallas Cowboys Cedric Wilson Jr. as well on a reverse. But he ended up having to leave that game with the groin injury. And, big prayers go out to Alvin Kamara, because I just hope that he can get on the field for another game and get those few yards that he's going to need to get. He only needs 50 yards to get to 1,000. But Kendre Miller, who had some success against the New York Giants the previous week, came out there in that 2nd half, and he had some success against you guys as well. 9 rushes for 46 yards, had the 17-yard run. And, one of my other things was take care of the football. Like, the Commanders had to take care of the ball, and they did that. This is a bad team. You won't get away with just Jaden Daniels having a big game and win a lot of games against good teams if you are the Washington Commanders, which is why you need, during this playoff run that's about to happen, during these last 2-3 games that you're going to have here, you're going to need Brian Robinson to really step up and get back to who he truly is. We also talked about needing to force a turnover. I thought forcing a turnover was very important, and preferably an interception. The Commanders came in, I'd mentioned this on the preview show, just 4 interceptions on the year. That's just, above the New York Giants and the New York Jets. Those are the only 2 teams that have less interceptions from a defensive standpoint on the entire year. And it was really great to see Mike Sanry still get the second interception for himself of the season. And, this is where I was wrong, was relying on RTDB. I thought that you guys were going to hammer the run and be effective with it. They gave Brian Robinson 21 touches, but he just was not effective. Now, I was wrong on that. I was also wrong on this one being an easy victory. I literally said this should be an easy victory for the Commanders. And I thought that the way that the game ended kind of changed that for them, right? I saw in the third quarter, Jaden Daniels laughing on the sideline, having a good old time, keying, all that stuff, right? Because they thought that they were going to just be able to walk into a victory like they normally have done in these close games. Now, I'll say this, rest in peace to a great philosopher. His name is John Witherspoon, and he once said, you win some, you lose some, but you live to see another day. And I think that's exactly what happened in this keys to victory for me here. But Washington, they have to get that running game to be the number one thing for them moving forward. And, I know you had the benchmark for how many yards you wanted the team to rush for. I challenge you to do this in the next couple of weeks here that are going to round out the regular season. Rushing yards from a running back standpoint. Because I think when you get close to 130, let's say, or whatever that number was, and Jaden Daniels is putting up 66 of the yards, half of it, I think, is not speaking to how effective that running game needs to be.
Very true. Could not agree more.
Yeah, so keep that in mind for these, when we buckle up and hit the road for the rest of the season. But we got one more game to go over here, and this was what a statement type of game from the Philadelphia Eagles. And like I told you, bro, I've been pretty excited to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, when a team is on this kind of a winning streak, I don't know, even for fans that aren't fans of the team, it just is really exciting for me, man. The Philadelphia Eagles have been playing really great football and came away with the victory at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's get off into it. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers fall to 10-4 on the season. That's not too bad considering the kind of personnel that they have. But Mike Tomlin, me and the Beard were talking about this off air about coaches of the year. Man, Mike Tomlin is definitely making a push for that.
Breaking news.
Fired?
No.
Damn. What's the breaking news? This better be good.
Michael Penix Jr. has been named the Falcons starting quarterback.
It's good. It's good. Let's go. Michael Penix Jr. versus the New York Giants. I hope my man go out here and fry. That is amazing news.
I wanted Kirk to face us in prime time. Now we're going to get Michael Penix Jr., Jaden Daniels, Sunday Night Football.
I can't wait.
That is going to be
amazing. That is going to be amazing. Now I got something to really look forward to. When I'm doing all these compilations for the quarterbacks, it ain't going to be Tim Boyle. It ain't going to be no Tommy DeVito this week. You better bet all your money is going to be Michael Penix 1,000%.
No, the Giants, that is going to... Listen, if he goes out there and if Michael Penix goes out there and fries the New York Giants...
Oh, it's going to look terrible.
Joe Shane cannot... It's almost like the...
That'll be it? Cherry on top?
I mean, how many more are we going to give the guy? I feel like he's got a whole goddamn banana split Sunday now.
Oh, man, I got to tweet that out. I got to tweet that out. We got to pause on this one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have to. Because, look, you can't have Saquon going crazy all season, Xavier McKinney going crazy all season, and then Michael Penix, we already see Bo Nix. I mean, you got to pass with J.J. McCarthy because he's been hurt. But Michael Penix goes and does it to your team? Oh, hell.
That is going to be – this recap this Thursday Oh man, this is going to be a fun one. I cannot wait. That I'm glad that was some good news. I thought you were going to say the Giants signed Greg Dulcich or something. All right, so let's talk about this game. Damn, that's amazing news. I'm very happy about that. Pittsburgh Steelers came into Philadelphia sitting at 10-3. They end up leaving 10-4. The Philadelphia Eagles now are 12-2 on the season, man. Like, remember when I asked you, Beard, who do you think is going to win the division when the Philadelphia Eagles were sitting at, like, I don't know, 4-2 or something like that? You're like, I think the Commanders are going to win. Man, things are looking a lot different right now. The Eagles were favored by 5 in this game. Over-under was 42.5. The Eagles end up winning 28-13. Now, my notes for this game start off with Jalen Hurts is a bad motherfucker.
You gotta tell me, man.
That's a bad man. He stepped to the podium with diamonds literally dripping off his neck. Everyone being like, yo, y'all rappers, y'all better step y'all game up because y'all chains don't look like that chain. I know what a Ford 500 looked like when it pull up next to a Bentley, okay? He said, so that's what y'all wanted to see, huh? Sat down with a stoic look. Jalen Hurts listen, right now he is that dude, okay?
Yeah.
I spoke on the Eagles having multiple answers for opposing defensive coordinators in a game where Saquon Barkley only had 65 yards. You know what's funny is, like, when you look at Saquon Barkley, 19 rushes for 65 yards, it's like that's a poor game from him. You look at Brian Robinson, 21 carries for 65 yards, and you're like, it's an okay game for a Brian Robinson. But there's different levels to this running back shit, and I think Saquon's, he's kind of one of those guys a little bit higher than that. Now, I don't think that Jalen Hurts was holding back the Eagles offense on Sunday because he accounted for 335 total yards and 3 touchdowns versus one of the better defenses in the league, okay? Jalen Hurts started off this game damn near perfect. He was looking like Lamar Jackson against the New York Giants. 12 of 13 for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. He finished the day 25 of 32 for 290 with 2 touchdowns through the air. He had 15 rushes for 45 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Both of his stud wide receivers had over 100 yards in this game. Devonta Smith had 109 on 11 receptions. A.J. Brown had 110 on 8 receptions. I saw them dapping each other up, smiling. These guys look like the best of friends. All of this, we talked about the pressure on some of these other quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels. Jalen Hurts was pressured 28 times in this game.
Good God.
How do you have a performance of 335 total yards? You literally have only 7 passes hit the ground when you are pressured on 28 dropbacks. Cam Hayward had 4 pressures in this game. TJ Watt had 5 pressures in this game. Prayers go out to him. I know he got hurt at the end of this one. Alex Highsmith had 4 pressures. And Dean Lowry, not Mike Lowry, but Dean Lowry had 4 pressures in this game. The first time Jalen Hurts has attempted more than 28 attempts in a game during this Eagles winning streak, which is now 10 games. During the past 10 weeks, Jalen Hurts has 26 total touchdowns to just 1 interception. 14 passing touchdowns, 12 rushing touchdowns. Remember we talked about, Jalen Hurts having 3 seasons of 35 total touchdowns, and who were the other quarterbacks that maybe have done that? I heard the stat the other day, talked about it on the Giant Overreaction. Josh Allen. 4 consecutive years. He's the only quarterback that has ever done that, to have 35 total touchdowns in 4 consecutive seasons. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be right there. He should be able to get to over 35. He's got 32 total on the year already. 18 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. Those numbers, they have just slowly but surely, people just saying like, oh, his numbers look like Daniel Jones, man. Jalen Hurts, I don't know. Those numbers look like Daniel Jones to me. Those don't look like Daniel Jones fucking numbers no more.
Exactly how people who say that sound, too.
The man has 14 rushing touchdowns on the year, okay? What about the rushing touchdowns, okay? It's not 7, it's double that, okay? 32 total on the year. Pittsburgh came into this game with a plus 28 turnover margin, and that's since the start of the 2023 season, which is the best in the NFL over that span. Talked about continuing to take care of the ball. The Steelers did win the turnover battle in this game, and Hurts did have the fumble on 3rd and 4 in the first quarter, but I ain't blaming it on him. I don't know if you remember the play. Kenneth Gainwell's right there in the flat. All he got to do is make an easy block. Jalen Hurts will be able to run for the first down. It was just 4 yards. Instead, Kenneth Gainwell was looking at Jalen Hurts like, you going to get this done, right? And Jalen Hurts starts scrambling, trying to run. He loses the ball trying to get those extra yards. But I really like Kenneth Gainwell. I think he is the perfect complementary. He had a great game. I think he's the perfect complementary running back to Saquon Barkley. 60 yards on 10 touches, 2 big plays. We talk about the tush push and, how many plays that Saquon Barkley ends up landing within the 1 or 2 yard line. 2 of his big plays, Kenneth Gainwell landed in between the 2 yard line. So he's a guy that's setting them up to get in the scoring range. In the end, the fumble from Jalen Hurts was not detrimental enough to put them in position to lose this game. Shady McCoy said, this is the best Eagles team he's ever seen. And we're talking about a guy who held the rushing record for the Philadelphia Eagles before Saquon broke it this year. The defense, number 1 in opponents' points per game. Number 1 in opponents' yards per game. Number 1 in opponents' yards per play. Number 1 in opponents' yards per pass. Number 1 in opponents' time of possession. The offense, number 1 in rushing attempts per game. Number 1 in rushing yards per game. Number 2 in rushing touchdowns per game. Number 6 in total touchdowns per game. Number 6 in total yards per game. Number 7 in third down conversion in the NFL. Number 8 in points per game. The Philadelphia Eagles are now on a 10-game winning streak. It is the longest winning streak in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. The previous longest streak was at 9. That happened in 2017. You know what else happened in 2017?
I think they did something along the lines of win a Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017. The Eagles are now 6-1 on the road and 6-1 at home. The Steelers had too many opportunities in this game to be able to stay close. The Cooper DeJean fumble set up a short field. A few penalties later, Pittsburgh is settling for 3. The Najee Harris fumble was the most critical moment in this entire game. You're driving down the field. You're down by 7. You're in the green zone around the 30-yard line. And on a basic-ass toss play, you end up fumbling the ball, giving the ball back to the Philadelphia Eagles, who then go down the field and score and really put this game away. The Steelers were 3 for 10 on third down. I get it. No George Pickens. That definitely really hurts them. Mm-hmm. The Eagles, man, they literally just took the Pittsburgh Steelers and said, y'all are not in our class. Y'all are a good team, not a great team. They held the Philadelphia Eagles to 56 rushing yards, 128 passing yards. The Steelers had just 41 plays to the Philadelphia Eagles, who ran 77 plays. I thought the scoreboard in this game was much closer than the actual game truly was. Jalen Hurts was the difference maker in this game. The better quarterback on the field on Sunday ended up winning this game. Don't forget the Philadelphia Eagles kneeled out the ball in the red zone in this game as well. They could have put up another touchdown on the board and made this a 3-score victory. I love it. I'm jealous of the Philadelphia Eagles fans right now because week in, week out, year in, year out, you know that your team is going to go out there and be able to compete.
And that's what happens when you get a guy like Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I mean, and their front office makes fantastic draft and free agent moves year in and year out, and it shows on the field. I mean, a lot of these numbers are numbers that we've been talking about in all of these games. That 77-41, it sounds eerily similar to a couple other teams that won games this week, right? Mm-hmm. Time of possession, Philadelphia, 39 minutes and 52 seconds to 20 minutes and 8 seconds for Pittsburgh. 401 yards to 163 yards. 26 first downs to 10 first downs. The third down, Philadelphia Eagles were 10 of 17 on third downs against a very good, as we said once and we'll probably say again, defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Meanwhile, the Steelers were 3 of 10. Listen, Philadelphia only punted the ball one damn time the entire game. And we talked about these turnovers, and we talked about the Steelers wanted to win this game. They had to either score early or they had to capitalize off of turnovers because they had the most takeaways of any team in the NFL this year. You mentioned even further than that into the last season as well. They had the 2 turnovers. The big difference is they got 3 points off of 2 turnovers, and what did Philadelphia do? They got 7 off of 1 turnover. So you know, like when you're playing against really good teams, one of the best teams, quite frankly, in the National Football League, you have to take advantage of opportunities. You have to. That's how you win games. And they just didn't take advantage of it. They couldn't run the ball. George Pickens is such a huge part of that offense. And they tried. They got Calvin Austin. They tried to get him involved in some of the short game stuff.
The back shoulder 7 route that he caught. Oh my God. I mean, the defender, with his back turned to the quarterback, hands up, and he just
You've had a couple.
I'm a big fan of Austin.
Yeah. And it's just, they just needed that. They needed a little bit extra to match up with a team like Philadelphia. They just didn't have it. And I think one of the biggest things that you said that is so like crazy is the pressures, right? Like when you think of Pittsburgh and you think of that deep, like how many quarterbacks in this league are going to be able to deal with that amount of pressure? 5, 6, maybe?
Not many. Not many.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's such a tough matchup, and I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to say, as good as the Eagles' offense is, I think their defense is even better than their offense.
Yeah, the defense has been a bit more consistent than their offense has been. But they are that kind of team where if one thing don't work, we talked about it. They know how to pivot.
We've talked about that with the Eagles for I feel like 3 years now.
Yeah, it's been like that. And really, the only blemish during that 3 years was that one stretch where they lost 5 of their last 6 last season. Yeah, outside of that, the Eagles have been such a consistent team. Yeah. They just know how to win games. They get into these gritty type of matchups against really good teams, and they end up winning those. I see Simeon Toko says that Philly has a real GM, and this speaks to a point that I wanted to make here, right? The Eagles are, they're like your uncle that pop up at Thanksgiving, right? And he don't bring shit for Thanksgiving. Shout out to Jaleesa. We were talking about this the other day. He don't bring shit to Thanksgiving, right? But he takes shit with him, right? He gonna take all them leftovers and be like, I'm eating for the whole week. Give me the ham, give me the turkey, give me the mac, give me all of it, the collard greens and all that. The Giants say, we don't need or want Saquon anymore. The Philadelphia Eagles say, we'll take him. In the draft, right? NFL teams are like, Jalen Hurts, not really a guy, not really first-round talent. We're not gonna take that risk on him. Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles says, we'll draft him. Tennessee Titans go, draft's coming around. I think we can draft Treylon Burks, and we don't need A.J. Brown. And the Philadelphia Eagles say, we'll take him. Heisman winner Devonta Smith comes out in the draft. Everyone's saying, what about Devonta Smith? Man, that dude, he's just a little too slender. He's built a little bit too much like Awthentik. Philadelphia Eagles say, we'll draft him. Not only will we draft him, we're going to trade up to go get him, okay?
He gets most of his balls in the middle of the field.
Yeah, because he's a dog. The New York Jets say, this Mekhi Becton shit, this situation is just not working out, right? And Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles say, we'll take those leftovers. We know what to do with them leftovers, right? Somebody was like, that ham don't look good, right? Philadelphia Eagles was like, nah, I know exactly what I'm going to do with that ham. I'm going to put that ham on a breakfast sandwich, scramble me a good egg, and throw it right on there. We got ourselves a bomb breakfast. New Orleans, they're like, we don't need Zach Bond. Right?
Oh, my God.
Philadelphia Eagles are like, come on, we'll take him. The only one that has not panned out for real is the guy they got from y'all. That's it. Yeah. That's it. But Howie Roseman deserves what's the prize that Kendrick Lamar won? It's a certain kind of a prize that you win, like not like a Nobel Peace Prize. Pulitzer Prize or something like that.
Pulitzer Prize, yeah. Pulitzer,
there you go.
That's right. Yeah.
Howie Roseman deserves one of those. I want to see Howie Roseman on a podium with a ribbon and a gold medallion on it or something like that, because he's one of the best GMs in the entire league. We're talking about a team that came out of 2017 and people thought that they were going to hit a rock bottom and have to rebuild. And the Eagles just don't have to rebuild. We're talking about that after they came out of the 2000s during the Andy Reid era with Donovan McNabb at quarterback. From 2003 to 2007, the Philadelphia Eagles were one of the best teams in the league, absolutely one of the best teams in the NFC. And they continue to keep doing this. Why? Because they have stable ownership and a stable general manager. Brandon Brown came from over there. Maybe this guy deserves a job.
I mean, and let's not forget, Jalen Carter, character issues out of Georgia, a little bit of trouble.
Yep.
We'll take him.
We'll figure this shit out, man.
Cooper DeJean, busted knee. We'll trade up with.
But a lot of motherfuckers would have drafted Cooper DeJean.
We'll trade up with the Commanders.
He was like CB1 for a while. Cooper DeJean. He was CB1 for a while.
It was.
I was very, when he first hit my radar, I'm Haitian, so when I saw that gene, I was thinking, this dude got to be Haitian, right? This is Cooper DeJean, right? This cannot be a white guy, right? Shout out to Cooper DeJean, man, out here representing for the Caucasian cornerbacks, bro. Love it. I love it.
Oh, man. Yeah, but, there is one Caucasian. I'm pretty sure he's Caucasian. He's got to be Caucasian.
I didn't like this alley-oop. I felt it.
You felt
like,
it.
you see the alley-oop and you're like, I don't know if I can't raise up there, dog.
We're going to rewind that one. He's here. Hey. Tuto! $4.99 says super chat. Love and respects to Awthentik in the Beard, Nuggets Jewel Master, and NFL Roadmaps Prime Minister. How we doing, gents? How's the weather around the corner? And please slap all stinky boys lose us.
You see the pun right there? He said, how we doing? How we doing? Damn good with them Philadelphia Eagles. Right on time, too, though. Right on time, bro.
How he's doing the damn thing.
Nah, that oop was up there, dog. I was like, I don't know, dog.
Yeah, I threw that one a little high. I apologize.
He threw that thing way up there. I'm about to catch this one and lay it up. Kick it back out. Nah, shout out to, though, man. That's my dog right there, man. Supporting all the New York Giants community, man. We definitely appreciate you, man. Any last words on this matchup here, man, before we get the folk up out of here? You good?
I'm good. Listen, it's the way things are brewing, man. It's gonna be an interesting couple of weeks here.
It's gonna be a good finish here.
Philadelphia and Washington coming up this weekend. We'll be back Thursday night at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the preview show. Mm-hmm. Next Tuesday is Christmas Eve, so we might have a little bit of a different recap schedule because you know how it is with the Hispanics on Christmas Eve.
Oh, yeah, Christmas Eve is it.
Christmas Eve is it. So I will be head into some big-ass pile of pork at this time next week.
Good stuff.
But, yeah, and then obviously the Michael Penix news breaking here live on Awthentik in the Beard. Going up against the Giants this upcoming week with a chance to put that nail in Joe Shane's coffin. And then prime time, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix. It's looking like an interesting end to the season here, ladies.
Joe Shane is probably going to struggle to get some sleep this week.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably going to be thinking about that Penix situation, because he could have dodged a bullet here if Michael Penix didn't play throughout this season. He's another quarterback that, you got lucky with J.J. McCarthy. He got hurt in the preseason. So that was another one you got lucky with. Maybe we swapped out Bo Nix for that. We didn't expect Bo Nix to have the kind of season that he's having. But, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, and I'm worried about Joe Shane. I'm absolutely worried about him.
Big shout out to Pal 11 for the $4.99 super chat. Says, "What's up, guys? Hope y'all feeling good. My bro Awthentik. If Penix balls out versus the Giants, can't wait for your post-game show and overreaction is going to be wild." That might be a 300 viewers at a time.
The Bleacher Report recap is the one I'm looking forward to. That's the one because I got smoke for y'all over there at Bleacher Report. When I first said we should draft Michael Penix at number 6, the Bleacher Report community was like, fuck is this guy? He thinks we need to draft Michael Penix of all quarterbacks at 6? I'm not rooting for the New York Giants. It's not a surprise here on Sunday. We're rooting for Michael Penix. We want to see Michael Penix go out there and put up 4 touchdowns and have a performance of 30 for 35 for 350 yards. That's what I'm hoping for. Shout out my dog, Pal, man, coming over from Bleacher Report, rocking out with us over here and supporting the channel over here on YouTube, man. Pal been in all the streams lately, man. Big salute to you, fam. I appreciate you, my dog.
Man, that was a good show.
Solid
Shout
2
out
hours,
to
man.
the chat. Shout out to the chat.
We're talking 6.5 hours of streaming in the last 2 days, man. It was definitely a vibe. The Beard came with his A game today, man. We tried to give y'all a bunch of nuggets. We tried to give y'all the good roadmaps. Tudo popped in right on time, talking about Howie, and we talking about Howie Roseman. It was just a great vibe all in all. Shout out to everybody that pulled up and rocked out with us, man. Go tell a friend to go pop in and check out this particular stream. I thought that this was a really good one, even if it's a Dallas Cowboys homie or Philadelphia Eagles homie or even a Washington Commanders homie. Tell them to come check us out. But y'all know how we end every show over here on Awthentik in the Beard. Keep raising that bar.
Shout out?
Go ahead.
Shout out Mike Vick.
Oh, yeah, he just got that head coaching job. Big shout out to Mike Vick.
Shout
most
out
definitely.
Mike Vick, man. That's there's been a lot of success for guys who are coming into these, lower ranking programs. Shout out Eddie George. Had a huge season as a coach this year. And I like to see Michael Vick kind of get it.
Come on, Cam, what we doing?
See,
that's because the Beard did this whole weird last whole man. All right, man. Look, man, y'all know what it is, man. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound, and a life without dreams is black and white, like Awthentik and the Beard. Well, maybe that's peach, actually. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack, one time. And that's a wrap, just like my camera right now. This joint is doing some crazy stuff, but y'all know what it is, man. Check us out for the preview show. Thursday is going to be an ill vibe. Y'all make sure y'all pull up at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of y'all evening. Peace.
Spike don't care.